Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Better Than Data YouTube channel. My name is JJ Reynolds, and we're about to talk about some GA4 stuff. This is some high-level strategy, how to think about GA4. Not necessarily how to push the buttons, how to think about it, because it's going to get really a lot easier for you if you can understand these fundamental concepts. So I'm just going to share my screen. We're going to hop into it. If you have not yet taken the quiz over at betterthandata.com/YouTube, go do that right now. It's a really helpful quiz, helps you get to where you're trying to go with your measurement journey. So let's just dive into it. I'm going to share my screen and we're just going to go through everything together. So what you're looking at right now is a giant Google Sheet that we have built for doing a whole bunch of different stuff within GA4, and it's still being updated as we speak. We're about to launch this to course members inside of the Better Than Data membership. So if you want this, join us inside. What I'm going to do first, though, is kind of walk you through how we got here. So first thing we're going to do, go over to Google Tag Manager, and we're just going to preview this. I'm going to open up the preview. It's going to pop up, open a new window, connecting to betterthandata.com/Y. And while that happens, I'm just going to explain a few things. The first thing is everything is an event inside of GA4. So now that this is opened inside of the GTM preview, we're then going to open up the actual website. Here's the little good old website right here. And then lastly, we are going to open up the actual debug mode. Okay. So if you are not familiar with this, go watch our other videos on GA4. We're just talking about some strategy of how to understand this. What you want to understand is when you're looking at the live real-time events of debug, if you look at an event, everything's an event in GA4, you then have parameters that are associated with that event. We can pass custom parameters, right? The author ID, that's a custom parameter. We can then pass other pieces of information, like for example, the post ID, that's another parameter. So we have all these custom parameters that we can pass with an event. But what we need to understand though, is that everything is an event and then there's information associated with that. It's not necessarily like universal analytics where there was session scoped things, there was product scope, there are some levels of that. But in general, what you need to think of is that there's an event and then in every event has a session ID that is tied to it. So here, look at the session ID, ta-da, it's just counting distinct. The number of session IDs is what gets you the number of sessions, okay? So that's what we want to focus on. So a lot of times when people are hopping in GA4, you just get overwhelmed really quickly because you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? We got scroll, we got click, we got user engagement. What you want to think about is everything's an event. So what do I need to know with this in order to understand? So for example, we have scroll, and then you might ask yourself, hey, maybe we want to know the scroll percentage depth, the percentage scroll depth. And hey, there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. There it is. So now you have percent scrolled. Then you can look at another percent scrolled event that's a scroll. So every single thing is an event. Let's go back to our Google Sheet. Okay. So now here is our Google Sheet. So this is our current methodology. It changes over time. It shifts the implementation of, we're trying to hone this over at Media Authentic to be the best possible implementation possible. But in general, here's what we've got, is that we have the event names on the left-hand column. So here, for example, scroll. We then have at the bottom, the parameters associated with that. So let me just bring this up so you can see the bottom of this, bada bing, bada boom. So we have scroll. And then here, when our implementers come in here, they can come in here and say, is this implemented or not? Maybe it's not used because, hey, maybe we're not using a scroll event for this SPA, or is it a conversion? So every single event, then you come into parameters, has parameters associated with it. So some parameters are associated with a lot of things. So for example, the page height or anything along those lines are associated with the config tag. So everything is associated with that. But other times you might not have that because, say, for example, the impression underscore offer, a custom event that we use on the actual offers of client sites. This case, you might actually want to be like, hey, we're only using this for specific events because we want to be able to identify, hey, this is a specific offer that we're identified for. So this allows us to visualize that everything is an event, and then B, plan those events in accordance with the parameters associated with it. Because in GA4, you have 50 parameters that you can send. You can actually send more that just don't show up in the UI, but like you could send more that go to BigQuery, long story short, or I'm not gonna touch about that right now. But what you can do now is plan out every single event, because everything's an event. And then what are the parameters that are supposed to be associated with this, right? What are the journeys that we have right now? Like for most of our clients, we have an offer journey, a lead journey, and a brand journey, because those are different types of methods that we can ultimately get to actions faster. Maybe you have user identified pieces. So here you can say like, hey, we have the user ID, subscription type, subscription level, the start date of if they have a subscription, right? That's kind of something that you can put inside of GA4, see how those users kind of trend over time. Maybe you have the visitor, etc. So this is just to show you that you can plan things much more efficiently in GA4 if you just think everything's an event and then there are parameters associated with that, as opposed to kind of going wildly through Tag Manager and GA4 trying to figure out exactly how to do something, right? That's that's what we want to try and figure out. So this is a little bit of a show and tell, but I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the core value here is as we are looking at our preview mode right here, we then are able to click into any one of our events. So here we have our page, or let's just look at our config tag, right? Where we can see every single value that is at the config level. And then we can also look at our scrolls, where we can look at every single value that is being sent on a scroll. And then we can also look through every single tag and see what event is being sent and what parameters are being sent with that event. And then that way you can have a plan in a Google Sheet, the implementation in Google Tag Manager, and the results in GA4 without having to lose your mind trying to keep track of what's happening where, as you start moving away from the default measurements to something that's more advanced and more custom, where you're tracking intent as well as just actions. So, whew. Guys, I hope you had a little bit of a little brain excitement on this. It is something that is, like, again, actively being developed. GA4, no matter who tells you what, it's still an evolving product, right? I say still as I record this in the middle of November, but it is still a revolving product that you need to be on top of, planning, building, executing, revisiting, and then planning again, because, you know, there's never enough planning that as long as you leave that back to execution. And if you have not yet, download the quiz or go to visit the quiz, betterthandata.com/YouTube, and I will see you in the next video.